Do you ever feel like time this year or Ramadan is slipping away? You had big plans. You wanted to pray 5 times a day on time. You wanted to read, if not finish the whole Quran, but distraction keeps on pulling you away. Here's the truth. Life happens, energy gets low, plans change, and there's too much to balance. And most people struggle because we plan for the ideal situation, but we don't know how to adjust to our life. Why this matters is because you are the only being who's exactly like you, who will ever grace this earth, and that makes you extraordinary. And I'm not saying this just to make you happy. It's for you to realize that you cannot copy and paste what everybody else is doing. With that being said, in this podcast, I'll share with you my 3-step action plan to help you stay consistent without constant burnout or overwhelm on a day-to-day basis. If you don't know me already, my life is extremely busy. I am married, I am a mother of 2 kids, 1 on the way, a young family, which is a lot. I have a house, as well as working. I'm literally recording this at 4 a.m. And add to that all of these acts of ibadah, especially all of the habits that I have to keep up with in all parts of my life. What if my daily habits is the Quran? I used to do tadabbur, but during Ramadan, I'm doing actually the Arabic and actually going through it line by line so that I can perfect my tajweed, as well as praying 5 times a day. Just even that by itself is a lot. Look, even my battery just died, okay? Life is a lot. Life is just, it's a lot. Let's get back to it. But a few years ago, after realizing that life is a chaos, I designed a method using my engineering background and systems thinking approach to make life a lot more effortless. Studying Islamic thought under scholars for 2 years also helped me put life in perspective, and today I'm going to show you exactly how to do this. Is this you? We're starting off the month ideal, okay? We have all of these plans, we've made these plans, we've had these ideas, but as the days go by, the motivation is almost non-existent. Hopelessness has set in. Or, this used to happen to me a lot, is that we just block everything out. You stop tracking, you stop thinking about it, and you just say, forget it all, I'm just gonna go with the flow. And all plans go out the window. But both paths are a bad deal. And I've read so many books by experts on this. I'm not just making all this stuff that I share with you up. And surprisingly, this mode of function is not the sunnah. This is not how the Prophet ﷺ lived, and it's extraordinary if you look into the seerah. If you want a full list of everything that I read in order to get to this level, I have a full list and I call it my knowledge hub. It has over 100 resources, which I update almost monthly. It's easily categorized, it's linked and reviewed all of the books that I read. It's a weekly habit for me. I don't go a week without reading. And more importantly, it's not just Islamic. I know it's really hard. There's a lot of toxic content that is out there. So this helps you proofread that, but also mental health, finances, relationships. How do you get into one? How do you keep up with it? And a lot more. This is a key step in my method because knowledge is what shifts your mindset and your belief systems about how the world works. And this is why about 80% of all habits cannot change, because we don't have the foundation right. So let's jump exactly into what I do and did in order to get to this level and how I make my life more effortless regardless of being busy. Do you realize that you're being guided every day and hour by hour? If you look at Surah Fatiha, ihdina sirat al-mustaqim, the triliteral word for ihdina, which is guidance, is ha, dal, and ya. The most interesting thing about this is those triliteral words, and most of Arabic is like this, okay, that have the same root meaning. So if you memorize this or understand Quranic Arabic, it's a lot easier for you to understand the Quran. So the interesting thing is that it occurs 316 times in the Quran. What this should tell you is that it's an important word and implies that you're not supposed to be doing life alone, but we function in life as though we have to. And the bigger question also is, how do you know it? How do you follow it on your individual life? Is it something that comes up once? Is it like a dini thing in that, you know, I'm on the straight path? Or is it actually daily or moment to moment? When I was getting really serious about the deen about 14 years ago, one of the things that I would do is read a dua set. There's this one hadith or dua that the Prophet ﷺ would make, and it says, do not leave me for even a blink of an eye. So this implies that it's a moment to moment thing, but it also took me a while to notice how that's being implemented in my life. So let me give you an example and let me explain a little bit more. So we're going to use 2 examples of the old type of person, the old you hopefully that we're trying to change. And this is the person who would wake up focused on all of the hardships. They assume, they're thinking, their mind is still going on and is thinking about all of the negative things. What is happening when it comes to the habit loop? And that's what I focus on habits, but I also add systems to it because a lot of us do not realize that we are a product of the environment that we live in. So in the habit loop, you have the trigger. This is what is causing the habit to start. So it might be the darkness, right? When you're waking up and it's 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. or 6 a.m. or you see the clock and you see the time, or you have an alarm that's buzzing. So this is a trigger that is causing you to be aware. After that is the behavior. The behavior is actually what you do, an active thing that you're doing, making assumptions and using the caloric value that you have in order to think and assume and replay all of this stuff in your head over and over again. The third step is reward. And it's really interesting because we don't really realize we're rewarding ourselves by being negative. Because everything that we do, especially the human mind and how it works, is in order to make us feel better. So in this case, what is happening? You feel like you're doing something productive with your time, that you're taking charge of your life by thinking, by playing it in your head. But also at the same time, you don't have a plan. You don't consider the plan or the mission. If you had a mission of doing all of these amazing things in the beginning, now it's out the window. But overthinking and thinking about it in your mind over and over again makes you feel powerful. So this is a negative habit loop that often happens. Now let's jump into the person two. So person two wakes up, they feel exactly the same way as this person, but their habit loop is very different from the other one. Hopefully you can catch it. Just listen a little bit closely for this one, okay? So the trigger in the habit loop is that it's dark outside, the clock is going, they are looking at the time, the alarm is going at them, and they are feeling the same exact thing, but their behavior is different. Instead of going inwards and following the nafs and all of these crazy thoughts that it's giving it, all of the crazy feelings that it has, it turns to Allah. It looks at the plan, it edits, and it remembers and it focuses on the mission. Alhamdulillah is one of my greatest tricks right now. I shared it actually. It was a video that really went viral on TikTok, but it's about remembering that this is a choice. Your day-to-day life is a choice. You have a mission and you're acknowledging that it's not a burden, and know that they didn't make it alone this far. There is one above you who can do this. So this is a mindset shift that one has versus the other, but action-wise, when it comes to the mindset and how things work, you see how different it is? In this case, what's the reward? Again, you don't do anything unless it makes you feel better, is that it makes you feel productive, but more importantly, you see the difference in your life. You are happy. You are not negative. You feel like something is happening. You also have a plan. You're sticking to that mission, and you are taking charge of your life by taking an action, or actually like getting up and doing something about it. But you know the main difference between these two people is that one operates off of their nafs, which is these intuitive thoughts, right? Waswasa is not here anymore, but it has done its job. It's your belief system. It has influenced your habits, and now it's automatic. Your subconscious has gone into your subconscious level. Your feelings, your beliefs are coming from what you consume from your environment and the metaphysical world. So this is like the waswasa, while the other one is not. It's completely detached from the nafsi side of yourself. Our ability to notice this is a challenge. Like we are wearing tinted glasses. So my favorite trick is also the sunnah, is muhasabah. And this means reflection. You can either do it in your mind, but I don't recommend that you do that. It's not like the olden world where you are only having like 3 tasks. You have to consider your family, your deen, and you know what you're doing, your work, the farm work that you're doing. It's very straightforward. But in the modern day, there's too much to remember. So I suggest not doing this. And my favorite habit, I've been doing this for the longest time, I think about 15 years, is that I journal. And if you want to know about like journaling, there's so many prompts nowadays. It's just a business consumerist industry. Like it's crazy. There's only 3 questions that you need to ask yourself. I can't remember it right now. So make sure to take the habit systems course that I designed, in which I take over 80 hours of all of the books that I have read and I distill it into just 1 hour. And I have a section about journaling and what questions you should be asking yourself, because all of these prompts are ridiculous. Only 3 questions you ask yourself on a day-to-day basis. The reason it's so powerful is that it teaches you about what your subconscious mind is thinking about. What are you thinking about that you don't even know you're thinking about? But it also helps you move forward so that you're not stuck in your emotions, and it gets you into the action plan. It's such a powerful thing. And I always tell people this is the only reason I'm saying. But also remember, and this is a huge issue that we have within the community, but a huge problem that we have that society has taught us. Remember that we are like sponges. We just soak up what the society has been teaching us. You don't want to be like person number 1 who is living off of their nafs. Perfection is never the goal. It is taking yourself into account. From the day that you were born, the human disposition is for us to make mistakes. We learn from making mistakes, but learning from the mistake is a part of the deen. And that's why tawbah is such an important thing, right? We make tawbah. You ask for forgiveness 100 times. Why is the biggest dua during Ramadan? Allahumma innaka afuwun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anna. Why are we asking for forgiveness? I don't even like the word forgiveness anymore. You have to be very conscious of the words that we use. The word is actually pardon, which means I know that I'm making the mistake. We all know we're making this mistake, but can you just like overlook it and just, you know, let it pass? That's what it really means when it comes to afwa. As well as ghafara is the same thing. So I never think of astaghfirullah when I say that as forgiveness. I think of it as pardon, because this is not my fault. Like, it makes you feel guilty to a certain extent. We're just humans, we make mistakes. So doing a daily reflection in which you're able to catch the trend and change it is that you make sure that you're not living in that negative for too long, or you're not making a mistake for too long. And that is the power of muhasabah, or reflecting. And this is the first step. You will never be able to see it unless you reflect. And this is why people go down the road and their life becomes a disaster, because they don't reflect on a regular basis. So whenever you get that feeling, check in with your nafs, which is telling you to move on or just to give up or to accept your humanness, that you will just make a mistake. Mistakes are fixable. You will make it. Don't forget that humanness part. But they are fixable, and you should be and you are able to reach 99%, which is ihsan. Not perfection, ihsan. So this is to the mindset and the mode of operation that we often have that we're not taught about, right? Like this is something that you pick up from experience or you're taught. So the biggest reason that they're not working out is because of your mode of operation, not the plans that you have. There might be something wrong with the plan, but it's about how you edit it and move forward. And this is exactly how you're able to recognize that there is guidance, because those events that are happening in your life are 100% the will of Allah, especially what has happened in the past. Those are teaching you to be better. But if you don't see them, guess what? They don't exist, do they? So the best thing for you to do is to list the reasons that you keep on getting distracted. Was it my phone? Was it because I was feeling tired? Was work too stressful? Write it down. And then you're able to use your brain to problem solve. That is literally what the conscious mind does, okay? But oftentimes what we do is we use it to think that we're being productive, and that is by worrying. Unfortunately, this is a habit that we have gained from our environment and is not proper. It's not what we should be taught, but that's what we pick up. But it's also a choice to not see guidance. So let's jump into the second step, and let's refer back to those two people and let us look at the problem, not the mindset perspective, but the action perspective. So both people had an assumption plan. Let's say that they were trying to finish the whole of Quran. They've never done it before. But as they're trying and the days are going by, they see that they don't have enough time, enough energy, enough education to do this. It just felt good in the moment to make that plan, right? It felt right in the moment before starting. But the day-to-day data is showing you that this is not going to be possible. This is nearly impossible. What can both people do, and how can they operate differently in order to be better? So person one makes the big goal and recognizes it's not realistic. This person decides that this plan was useless and they're just going to throw it out the window. They're just not going to think about it, and they're just going to leave it alone. Versus person number two, who made the same exact big plans that were not working out. They realize they're not going to be able to do it, but instead what they do is they just change directions. They decide that the planning approach was the problem and not the planning itself. So they take themselves into account. And this is one of the biggest things that I learned while studying Islamic thought. The secular world always teaches you that you are right? Your perspective is right. But from an Islamic thought point of view, it's always question yourself. And that is how you're going to get further. I believe in this 100%. So when they look back and they reflect, what they realize is they never set an exact plan. They never tracked it. They never prioritized it. Whatever happened, happened. They had old plans that were wasting their time, such as scrolling on the phone. That is not allowing them to have the mission or the plan to continue. Another thing they might have done is they never put it on the calendar, so never got the reminder, and they're too distracted. There's too many things happening. And when their emotions and hardships come in, they let them go and they go with the plan. Realize how their mode of operation is different, but their situation is exactly the same. And at the end of the day, it was a personal choice, the free will, in which one decided to take a different approach than the other one. For instance, my car just got full. I had to get up again and then start over again. Second time, but we keep moving. So set specific goals for yourself. Instead of saying, I want to read more Quran, try, I want to read one page after each salah. If that doesn't happen, after one salah, you just edit a little bit throughout your life. Most of us, when we're making plans, and this is a huge problem, and that's why I have my habit planner, in which I help you break it down and go from mindset into action plan, because the action plan part is the problem. Over 90% of people, and this is why after 1 month, especially when it comes to New Year's, we actually fail on our plans and our goals. It's because we're not living on this planet. It's actually daydreaming or wishful thinking to avoid the discomfort that comes with actually restricting yourself so that you can actually change. So we just make up plans so that we can make ourselves feel better at that moment, but after that, it doesn't work. You have to be strategic. You need to break it down so that you can actually make yourself feel comfortable. So there's a page in my habit planner in which I help you do exactly this, and it's not the SMART method that everybody talks about. That is so generic. For busy people, you have to be very strategic. You have to work through all of the mental blocks that you have, as well as strategically planning for low and high moments in your life. The third and last step is that most people do not realize that the small things that they do is what makes or breaks their day. I've read so many books in order to help me rewire my mind about this fact, because I did not believe it. Like, life is not supposed to be this complicated. It can actually be effortless. If it's hard to believe, you need to read some of the books that I have on my knowledge hub. But life is not supposed to be this hard. And this is what I mean. You don't have to do 200 things. One change, and it's called the keystone habit, can make all the difference in order to actually change your life for the biggest. And you have to identify this, and this is the hard part with a lot of people, because it's most likely the thing that you don't want to do. So let's go back to the example in order to identify what the keystone habit for each of these people are. So let's identify the keystone habit for person number one. And it's oftentimes not the trigger within the habit loop. These are stresses of life. It happens. We all have stresses of life. One thing I have been able to do is reduce the stress in my life so I don't have to go into the old habit loop. So that's another trick to it, but I'll explain that in another video. The main problem here is how you process the information or what's happening in your life. Another major problem is the lack of knowledge, and our scholars love to famously say it's lack of iman, okay? It really is, but you have to understand what they mean by that. So if you change this one part of yourself, I think this is why the Knowledge Hub is the bestseller right now, is because we have to shift our mindset, okay? If you change this one part of yourself in which you gain enough knowledge to understand how your brain works as well as how your relationship with Allah is directly, rather than just all of these do's and don'ts, then you are able to actually create the biggest shift so that you can process information. Your mindset and how you process information can be the biggest skill for you. Because as you realize with person number two, they have the mindset skill to be able to reframe everything that is out of their control and how to take that mindset shift and put it into action. When negative emotions come, and these come for everybody, right? Negative emotions come all the time. Or they do something bad that is considered bad by society, like, missing one prayer. They don't go into the emotion and let it feed it. They know how to navigate the emotion. So my favorite trick, and this is the last point, by identifying what the keystone habit is, you can actually strategically plan step by step to overcome that habit loop. So what I do is I identify my habit loop. I figure out what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and what I'm getting out of it. And I've done this so often that I'm able to change my habits almost immediately because I understand what the source of the problem is. We are logical human beings, and people in society do not teach us this, right? You're just crazy. You're doing these things because you're a bad person. No, that's just us tainting stuff because we love judgment. We like to put people in a box. If you want to help them and show them the way, especially love yourself and show yourself the way, you identify the source of the problem and you're able to change so much better. So let me give you an example of scrolling on your phone automatically. For instance, if you're like, oh, every time I open up my phone, I'm always on TikTok, I'm always on this app, then you're able to be like, okay, let me stop. Now you've gotten that trigger, you've gotten that guidance, okay? Everything is a guidance, you guys. If you looked at the Prophet ﷺ's life, every time an opportunity came, he always went for it. He always took it as a means of guidance. Maybe the next thing you should be doing is checking your phone usage. It's 9 hours. Where has all your time gone? There. This is the reason that you can't go to sleep. This is why you can't wake up early. This is why you can't do all of those acts of ibadah that you wanted to do, okay? So this was a keystone habit for you, identifying mindfulness, that scrolling on your phone is what's taking time away from you, and that is what is causing distraction. But you have to do that hard job of restricting yourself. And this is really hard, and that's why I talk about habit systems, because there's little tiny things, again, that you can do in order to make it easier for yourself. So the key here is awareness, 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 awareness. But what's interesting is that the other word for this is consciousness. Another word for this is also taqwa. Not taqwa of Allah, because that's what we love to say, right? Fear Allah. No, mindfulness of Allah. And what's really interesting about this is that if you look through the Quran, ihsan and taqwa always go hand in hand. So you're aware of it, you're conscious of what you're doing, and then you follow it up with ihsan. You do things in order to change it. And that is what actually gives you guidance. If you want to go through this and look through this yourself, go ahead. But this is one of the biggest things that I've learned through my 6 years of tadabbur of the Quran. So I'm basically telling you that awareness is what's going to take you away from distraction. Trying over and over again through ihsan is actually what is going to get you somewhere. But this ideal that society has brainwashed us into being perfect is not going to get you anywhere. And more importantly, it's not found. I hope this was helpful. In the next video, I'm going to be talking about all of the mistakes that are draining you. You need to have some sort of energy to actually continue. If you're constantly drained, you're not going to do anything good. So we'll talk about that in the next video. Make sure to stick around. Until next time, peace.